Well, hello and welcome to the Working Lunch, the Slow Chambers weekly series where we take some time to talk with our community leaders and connect you with some of the exciting people and things happening in our region. I'm Jim D'Antona, President and CEO of the Slow Chamber, and today we'll be having a conversation with former Grover Beach City Councilmember Mariam Shah. During her time on the council, Mariam served on the executive committee of the Homeless Services Oversight, the Air Pollution Control District, and the California League of Cities. She also sits on the board of the Grover Beach Library and has been part of the Grover Heights PTA for 7 years, serving 3 years as president. Since leaving office in Grover Beach just a few weeks ago, she was just appointed to the Diablo Canyon Decommissioning Engagement Panel. She joined the board of the 5 Cities Homeless Coalition and continues to be an advocate for affordable housing and homelessness solutions. Today, I'm excited to talk with Mariam about her life and career before coming to the Central Coast, her motivations for getting involved in local politics, and what the future may have in store. Mariam, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's great to be here on a fun Friday, hopefully for everyone, and maybe looking forward to a little time off for everyone next week, or at least this weekend. So thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. And as we sit down to lunch, kind of first and foremost, where are you zooming in from today?
I am in my house in Rio Grande, and we haven't lived here too long. So I found my diploma, but I haven't hung it up yet. So we were kind of comparing Zoom backgrounds. Mine's not quite ready yet.
I'm sure. And again, I appreciate you making time in the middle of this, because I know that when I moved at the beginning of the lockdown, it was kind of a surreal experience. I can't imagine having to move an entire family, leave office, and get set up in my new home. But it looks like you're here, so it must have gone sort of well.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I think if we've learned anything this year, it's just pivoting and keep moving, just keep moving.
That's awesome. So, well, before we dive into all the amazing things you've done as a community leader, I'd love to hear a little bit about how you first came to the Central Coast.
Well, we were living in Ohio at the time. I was born in Ohio, spent some time growing up in Detroit area, went to college in Michigan, law school in DC, worked in New York, then finally made it back to Ohio. Met my husband, and we were both working all the time. He was a resident and I was a lawyer. So after our wedding, we both went right back to work like that. I think it was Memorial Day weekend, so that Tuesday. So about 2 years later, we thought we should have a honeymoon, and we decided to drive up Highway 1. And right when we got around the Hearst Castle, my husband was like, I could live here. And I was just like, there's no people here. There's nothing but cows. And so I said, if you can get a job here, then let's just do it. Thinking there's no people there. He's not going to get a job. But he got his first job at Santa Maria Hospital, and he's still there. And the man who hired him actually asked him to be the boss so he could take more time off. So here we are now. And like my husband says, I'm enjoying hopefully the last job I ever have. So we're going to be here.
That sounds amazing. And it does sound like a lot of the ways that folks come to the Central Coast with the same concerns of finding that first job. But when you got here, what were some of your first impressions? Was one of those first places Grover Beach?
Actually, Grover Beach was one of the first places we came. When we did an interview dinner for the Santa Maria Hospital, the head of the group actually lives in Grover Beach. Well, the head of the group at the time, and he lives near Red Bee Coffee, so kind of right in the downtown. And so he had us meet at a Thai restaurant in Grover Beach. So that was the first kind of place we came in the area. I will say our first impression of the area, because we'd flown in up north and we're driving down. And as we came over the hill and we saw the cliffs, and we saw Dinosaur Caves Park, I started crying. My husband's like, why are you crying? I'm like, because I know we're moving. I know we're moving here and I know we're leaving our whole family and I'm just sad about that, but I know we're moving here. So that was kind of our first impression. Like, this is all so different and odd, but like beautiful to us that like we have to be here.
Yeah. Well, again, a familiar perspective. So that would have been, I think, right around, is that 2008-ish?
Yeah. So we moved here in 2008.
Well, that's a pretty fast progression. And so did you immediately kind of jump into local politics, or did it take a while to attract your attention?
I was a stay-at-home mom for a good number of years. I was in a mom's club, and it was funny because I attended my first meeting while I was still pregnant. So they were like, where's your kid? I'm like, right here. I just want to meet people. So, but I had always wanted to be involved in politics. We actually were always involved in politics as a family. We used to go for walks around our neighborhood, and my mom would just say, oh, just run this pamphlet up to every door. And I didn't know I was campaigning for my state legislator. And I was looking through some old papers recently, and I found a note that this same man wrote me when I was in college. So he still kind of remembered us as a family, like helping with his campaigns for so many years. So it was always something I'd wanted to do, but I had never really had the opportunity to do. With, I'm sure so many people can relate to coming out of school with student loans. It's not like you really go into politics to pay your bills. So the opportunity had never arisen. And one day KSBY just put out that we need a council person in Grover Beach. And so I just showed up. Not that I got the job that day, but that was kind of how I started getting involved.
So there was a opening and you kind of just raised your hand to show up, and, you know, you were considered for the job.
Yeah, that was, well, another council person had moved to Pismo. So it left an opening. And so I showed up, and I think it was 14 of us applied, and it was down to 2 of us. And they picked the other guy because they knew him. They didn't know who I was. But but as we do in Grover Beach, they didn't let me leave that meeting without volunteering for something. So they said, join this commission and that. And so I just kind of started getting involved as a community member, and that led to other opportunities. And finally, I decided by 2014, I wanted to run.
Well, was there something when you were considering that run, or 2014 came around, was there a specific person or event that made you jump in, or a piece of advice that all of a sudden had come up that you were, yes, this is it, I'm going?
Well, a couple things, you always kind of think back to like moments in your life, like, wow, maybe this was like really a moment. But when I had come out of law school, I was looking at a bunch of different law firms, and one of the law firms had said, well, if you come work here, we'll let you meet Hillary Clinton. And I thought, well, why not? I'd like to meet her. So when I did get to meet her, I asked her, how did you get involved? What advice would you give a young person who wants to start getting involved? And she said, if you see a vacancy in your community, fill it. There are so many boards and commissions that just need people. And sometimes they're just vacant for lack of people who are able to give their time. So that was kind of what led me when I saw the thing on KSBY. I thought, well, why not me? They're saying they have a vacancy and they're putting it on TV, so let me fill it. So then after I had gotten in kind of more involved in Grover Beach, had sat on one commission, I was approached by 2 former mayors of Grover Beach, Steve Lieberman and John Scholes, and they said, we think you should run for office. And it was really like a pivotal time, because you wouldn't believe women need to be asked to run for office. I wouldn't have done it if they wouldn't have asked me to, even though I wanted to do it. And so I said, well, what do you want from me? Why are you asking me to do this? And they said, well, you just seem like the type of person who would read the packets. And I said, well, I would read the packets. So it's just funny because now, Chief Lieberman is the fire chief, and we're kind of working together like that. And I'm always, whenever I make any decision, I'm like, this is your fault. You got me involved, so you can't complain. But yeah, you really do look back on the people who encouraged you, and you're just so thankful because sometimes people just need that push.
It's never an easy one. I know from a lifetime in it, it's never easy to put your name out there, to jump out in front. So, I always am thankful for anybody who's willing to do that. And, you especially kind of new in the community to get into that is really amazing. And obviously while you were on council, you got there and the city undertook some really kind of ambitious projects, right? Is there one or two that you were kind of most proud to have been part of?
Oh gosh, there was so much. And I always say people started laying the groundwork before I got there, but we really got to carry the ball over the yard line, and it's still being carried. And I think that was the hardest part of moving, because I see now, I mean, they're in the end zone, and now it's time to celebrate, and celebrating in city government is like building parks and enhancing the community. And you've probably seen a couple articles about now we're able to do that. So I think some of the things that were most exciting that I really got to work on was fixing the streets. When my first time I ran in 2014, everybody was talking about the streets, as they still do in Grover. And it was just, we're never going to be able to do this. We have a sales tax in place, but it's just not enough money. It's not going to happen. Well, okay, we need to ask the voters, but they're never going to vote for that. Well, they voted for it, and that was amazing. And then we told people as we were kind of going around, this is going to take 20 years. This is a huge project. Well, we're 5 years in and we're halfway done. So that's exciting too, because I remember people when we were talking about this who were kind of older being like, well, I'm never gonna see this, but I still want to see it for my city. And for them to be able, I'm like, you're driving on your smooth roads, it's good. It's really exciting. So I think that was something I was really proud to work on. I think another thing was just going through the entire process, start to finish, of figuring out a way to allow the marijuana industry to come to Grover Beach, to develop in a way that allowed the community to thrive and exist. And always I said the goal was, if you don't want involvement with marijuana, you shouldn't even know it's here. And I know for me personally, my life didn't change, but if it's something you're into, it's there. So just like any other business, we were able to regulate it and get it in place in a way that makes sense for the community. And that was really a lifesaver during COVID. So it kind of just reaffirmed that diversifying your economic base is so crucial. You can't just be all tourism, and you can't just be all restaurants, and you can't just be all industry. If COVID has taught us anything, it's diversify, have a backup plan, and then have a backup plan for the backup plan. So those would be like two really good projects that I worked on. Not easy, but good.
Well, and it certainly was one of those things, as some of the nerds like us over here in the chamber, we've obviously seen that Grover Beach really did come through COVID, and from a government side in terms of revenues and being able to do things, give out grants in a healthy way, and mostly because of the revenues you were driving from the cannabis industry. So really amazing work there. And I might know a few people who live over there and really have, it has not, from what they've seen, been a huge problem. So, congratulations on that great work and all the work that you and Matt and the other council members did over there to make that happen.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been funny because even as a parent, in the community, I had my concerns. Is everyone going to be walking around doing drugs? It turns out it's really the baby boomer generation. And even some of the owners that had been really excited about, oh, a lounge, and I put this area for a cool lounge, they said, forget it. We just made it into an area called Aches and Pains, because that's our area, that's our customer base. They want to sleep and take away their aches and pains, and a lot of them buy it for their pets, and that's their people. So it's just been really interesting, and that I didn't predict that.
It's really interesting. And local government really is kind of that wonderful, amazing, kind of challenging, but sometimes hilarious for a whole host of reasons. Do you have were there any kind of those experiences that, that would fall into that Parks and Rec-esque meeting experiences, or things that happen that were just that way?
Well, I think when you come to a lot of the decisions, especially the hard ones, sometimes you just have to laugh or you cry. But you did, I will admit, you gave me these questions in advance because I had to think about this one. And I think about the town of Pawnee and Parks and Rec, and it's just like this it's a lot like Grover Beach. It's this very unusual, quirky town with kind of like a quirky history, but they're just so dang proud of it. And that's kind of how we are in Grover. Our mayor, so definitely really, really wanted to have a big 60th anniversary celebration. We had our 60th anniversary of Grover Beach in 2019. And I was like, okay, this was before the world shut down. And so I said, okay, I mean, I'm from the Midwest, East Coast. I think my junior high was 60 years old. Like, I was like, why are we but okay, like it's our 60th, let's make a big deal. So we have someone in our community who's actually named Grover Cox, who volunteered to play D.W. Grover, who from the 1800s at the 60th anniversary celebration. So he also, by the way, I hope a lot of kids aren't watching, but he also plays Santa Claus. So every year, also, he's just so awesome to do all this, of course, out of the goodness of his heart. He doesn't accept any money. And so he came to a council meeting. We had like a lunchtime event, and hello, I'm D.W. Grover, and I came here in 1800, and I started the city, and congratulations on incorporating. And so we made the theme of the lunch 1959, because that's when we actually incorporated, and people were there who were there when we incorporated, so we got to hear their stories. But then we had this figure from the 1800s, and I'm like, am I in the 1800s? Am I in 1959? I also know you in 2019, so how do it was just like a very funny, but it turned out great. And now that, we've all been through a year of not celebrating anything, right? I don't look back on any gathering, on any celebration as a waste of time. Like, it was all amazing. I'm so thankful we did it. But it was just like a very funny time. And it's just something that I feel like we'd only do in Grover is get someone in a time machine from the 1800s.
I think you nailed it. That's exactly what we were looking for, because those are the kind of things that can happen at in the local city, small community stuff, and it's pretty special and amazing. And talking a little bit about that, defining the spirit and culture of a city is really challenging, and especially for a place like Grover Beach that's kind of been trying to figure out itself, right? How do you describe it to friends, family, people who have never been?
I think everybody who visits Grover Beach or lives in Grover Beach has a different take on what it means to them. I know for a lot of people, it's just a quiet beach town. It has a lot of roots in artists living there, and there's a whole very interesting history of an artistic community, and that's why some people have started doing community murals again, and we're promoting public art. before I was on the council, they hired a consultant years ago, and as an outside consultancy group, all they could come up with was butterflies and a great place to spread your wings, and it's all about the butterflies. But I've never liked that, because I'm like, the butterfly park isn't even in Grover Beach, it's in Pismo. And then of course we have the Stone Soup Music Festival, which is just this super eclectic, gathering of world music. So, there's just a lot of different ways to define it. One way it was defined to me when I first moved here was, oh, well, that's the place where if you can't afford to live other places, but you want to be by the beach, that's where you live. And that's unfortunately not the definition of Grover anymore. I don't know where is an affordable place to live. Personally, for me, one of the things I was proudest of is I started to feel that on my time on the council, when people wanted to bring a new idea or something that they felt would be controversial or that other cities might not want to talk about, they kind of knew Grover will talk about this. So let's go here first. Like with the polystyrene ban, they approached us with that. Even with the marijuana industry, the way that issue came before us is our city attorney brought us an emergency ordinance saying marijuana is becoming legal, and if you don't pass something today to prohibit it might be allowed. And we said, you gotta pass this ordinance. I've written it up, here you go. And we said, what if we didn't pass that ordinance? So what if we did something else? And after his head finished exploding, then we move forward. But even recently with the dunes issue and the coastal commission, and that was one of my last meetings, and because it's been so controversial and so hard, other cities just didn't want to talk about it. They didn't want to hear from people, and they didn't want to talk about it publicly, which I get, because it's just a lot. But we said, sure, we want people to weigh in, we want to hear from people, we want to give our perspective. So to me, we're the city that doesn't say no. We don't start at no, we start at what if. And that was just a super fun environment to be in.
And I would say that's a great analysis of the reputation, because I would believe that operating outside of the city of Grover for most of what we do, that is one of the reputations. So congratulations on that. But now you've moved to Arroyo Grande. You're no longer a council member. You've joined the board of the 5 Cities Homeless Coalition. It's just announced that you'll be serving on the Diablo Canyon Decommissioning Engagement Panel. That's a mouthful. What drew your interest to those 2 initiatives in particular?
Well, economic development is just something, we have 10 goals in Grover Beach, but economic development is kind of part of every single one of them. And so I've been out to Diablo a couple times just in my work as a council person, and it was an opportunity to continue that conversation of how do we do this? How do we make this work? And I just feel like we need people looking at this issue. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not coming from the industry. I'm not representing anyone. I believe in climate change and the environment, but I wouldn't call myself a hardcore environmentalist. And I think, we need people involved in issues that just want to help with finding the best way to figure out issues. And I always say this to my husband, because he works a lot. And I always say, well, the most valuable thing you can give is your time, because you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. And he always says, well, spoken like a person who doesn't make money. But so I just felt like it's something I've kind of learned to do over the years, like synthesizing the input I get from the community and trying to put that out in a way that makes sense. And as far as the 5 Cities Homeless Coalition goes, that was kind of, homelessness was one of the first things I was approached about, even when I was running for council in 2014. The People's Kitchen had lost their space to serve lunches, and they were serving lunches out of Ramona Park because they just didn't know what else to do. That wasn't a good fit for the community. That wasn't a good fit for them. And so it was like, we need to find a way for everyone to coexist, because you're a valid service, but you can't do it here. And so we had to like figure that out. And you always think in your mind, oh, if we just got the funding to build the housing and help the people, everything's going to be fine. But it's really not as much about funding as it is about locations, as it is about changing ideas, as it is about alleviating fears, and about, you know, you're afraid. I can't tell you over the years how many comments I've had of people not wanting certain people to come to their neighborhood. But when you look at the income levels in this community that would actually consider you low income, I've literally have people complaining about people that I'm like, you are that person. You are low income. You wouldn't believe in this county what makes you low income. So sometimes I just think, you know, sometimes when you've learned so many acronyms, how can you walk away when you've already learned so much? So I just really hope that I can continue in some way to just make that difference and be that person.
Well, it's certainly refreshing to hear you talk about it. It's, I will be honest, it's the reason we wanted to talk to you, because again, you do have that idea of someone who wants to dive in and really get in the issue, not from a perspective, but from a good of the community. And certainly I know you, I won't make you relive, I know the homeless issue of the housing piece that erupted in Grover and having all of that. And it's now one of those biggest pieces facing our community. And so are looking at it from the 5 Cities Homeless Coalition, are they getting, you know, is the idea to generate more resources or spread message, or kind of both?
I think that the thing people need most is to spread the message, to just spread the message that it's not enough. Of course, it's amazing to donate money, and always donate money. I don't want to get in trouble with the 5 Cities Homeless, but always donate money. But if you are willing to write a check, you need to be willing to accept something in your neighborhood. And that doesn't mean something that's going to change your life. It doesn't mean something that's going to ruin your neighborhood or tank your property value. It means accepting change, and whether that means traffic, or whether that means a slight change to your view, or whatever, you really need to put your money where your mouth is, because and also express that you would support locations, that you would support your leaders when they have to stick their neck out and pick a location. Express that you would support that, because that's the hardest thing, especially now. Homelessness has become a priority, and we have funding coming to this county like we've never had funding before. But if we can't find locations for long-term solutions, all we can do at the 5 Cities Homeless Coalition is keep putting the money toward eviction prevention and rent relief, which are very helpful, because the best way to prevent homelessness is prevent people from becoming homeless, especially here. But we could blow through millions of dollars doing the same thing and not really see a difference until we can support some locations to create change.
And I'm so appreciative of those comments that you're making. And, you know, we certainly share that at the chamber, exactly, because if you don't build that housing, it's going to end up on your doorstep one way or another, right? It's not going away, and it potentially is getting worse. And so trying to get that out of your viewpoint right off the bat is certainly an important part. So really appreciate kind of your perspective on that. And unfortunately, we're already at the half hour. So, you know, it's always amazing talking to you. And, getting to hear your viewpoint. And for everyone out there, if you haven't, you got to engage Mariam. She's great on talking about all these things. But kind of off topic, and what are you looking forward to this weekend?
Oh, well, it's Easter weekend. Just trying to, as we all are, I think, make yet another holiday during COVID special. With, we're all calling up our vaccinated friends these days and associating as we can, and just trying to celebrate, because I think if we've learned anything, it's just celebrate when you can. So just trying to make things light and fun and throwing some Easter eggs on the lawn.
I think it's great. And I think you actually just made it a great point. The pitch for vaccination is you will be invited to places if you're vaccinated. So,
That's right. That's right.
So go get vaccinated. Well, I want to thank you so much again for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have you, and really looking forward to working with you on all the things you're working on in homelessness, and obviously Diablo Canyon coming up. Big deals.
Yeah, and I encourage people to reach out if they have an idea, or I have a Facebook page, Mariam Shah, community activist. So yeah, please like my page and reach out anytime.
Well, and for all of you out there, thank you so much for eating lunch with us. You can join us next week, where we'll be talking with Cal Poly President Jeff Armstrong about the latest happenings at the university and prepping for a return to in-person classes, ? If you have questions for our guests, feel free to add them in the Facebook comments below, and Mariam will get a chance to maybe answer some of those. We appreciate all of you for tuning in. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. Stay healthy and safe out there.